So we said events are actions that are triggered on your browser. And when they get triggered, they initiate corresponding they initiate another action. Most times it could be the action could still be from the event that is calling it. The action could be from another event. And we did a few examples the last time, and we said in JavaScript event, we have something called events, and we have something called event handlers or event listeners. Events are the actions themselves, while event handlers are the piece of code that are being executed whenever these actions are being called. Let's say you click, the click is an event, but I know we're mostly conversant with the click events. Now there are several types of events in JavaScript. We have the mouse events, we have the keyboard events, we have the DOM events, and several of them. But for the sake of what we're doing and for the sake of what we use every day, please just go ahead and read the documentation. You can go to MDN documentation. See, the only way you could learn, trust me, the only way you could learn JavaScript, you could learn anything in programming is to read documentation. I think we'll do a session that will involve how to read documentation, because as you proceed in this field, you have to learn how to read documentation. See all the videos they do on YouTube, everything they do, it didn't come up from anybody's head. What they basically do is they go read documentation, understand it, because it is basically understood that most people find it difficult to read, they're lazy to read. So they like watching videos. So once you've read it, you understand it, you come and make a video, something like that. But what I'm trying to say is please learn how to read documentation. In one of our sessions, especially when we enter React, we will actually devote our time in reading documentation. Because no matter how good you are, you have to learn to read documentation because you don't know everything. All right. So as I said, please read up those ones, but I will try and go through the common ones we use every day, like mouse events. The mouse events, of course, as the name implies, these are events that are triggered by that are triggered using the mouse. Now, keyboard events are events that are triggered using the keyboard. Now, example of mouse events, we have three main mouse events. We have the click events, we have the mouse enter, and we have the mouse out. Now, I would just like to focus on the click events, because the mouse enter and the mouse add event are I call them subset of the click event. Imagine your mouse down means you're pressing that thing, you're pressing the right mouse button down, the left mouse button down. Mouse out means you're releasing it or something, or mouse enter, you're releasing it. So it's almost similar to the click events. So that's why most times when you know it's like a subset of the click event. So the click event is like they will still have the double click event, but you know the double click event and the click event, you have to click 2 times to get a double click event. So that's why I'll just try to focus on the click events for now. Then as we proceed, we'll now see other types of event listeners. All right. And we started with an example. We said, okay, for example, so we have the click event, we have the event, and we have the event handlers. Now, JavaScript itself has provided a way. JavaScript itself has provided a method for us, a method that helps us trigger the events and also carry out a particular action based on the event we triggered. And we'll say that method is called the add event listener method. If you see my browser online 639, I'm not sure I've started live preview. Online 639, you see that there. So JavaScript has provided that for us. It's a method that handles the events and the corresponding action when you click on this event. Okay, we started looking at it last week, and we gave a typical example. How do you now call these events? How do you now call them? We saw some very little examples. I will go through them just again. Then saw some very little examples. We say the first thing you do is to get the event that you want to call the action on. To get the event that you want to call the action on. And if you recall, how do you get an event, or you get the element that you want to call the action on. And how do you get an element? Of course, using the get element methods we learned. Get element by ID, query selector, and the likes of it. So the first step is to get the events, to get the element we want to call an event on. So let me go ahead and demonstrate it. To get the element we want to call an event on, okay? So in this my, if you check my line 1, okay, on line 646, okay? So the first thing I'm doing here on line 648, sorry, the first thing I'm doing here is I'm calling event listener on P3. But what is P3? If there was no P3 in my browser, JavaScript will make it through an error and tell me that there is no P3. But if you go up, you see where I created a P3 element. This is where I created it first before I started assigning it to, okay. Sorry, you know, we did this last week. So this is my P3 elements. This is why I created my P3 element first. This is my P3 element where I created it first. Now, element. Yeah, that is where I created my P3 element first. But there are cases where probably my P3 element is existing in my browser, in the HTML code. Nothing to bother. It's the same thing. I want to see how I can go back or comment out certain things so that we look as if we are building from scratch. In this case, we builded everything from scratch. We created our P3 elements here, but there are cases where your P3 element already exists in the HTML. Please, who can tell me how do you grab it and save it to a variable?
So you can give it the ID, then you get it through the ID.
Okay, what method do we use?
You create the P3 element in your HTML, then you go back to your JavaScript. You create a constant or a let, then create a variable and put it inside a variable like const P3 equal to documents.getElement by ID.
Okay.
Then you get it by the ID that you give it to it.
Exactly, that's correct. So what I wanted from him, just to hear from him, was use the get element by ID method or any of the methods we use in getting element from our HTML. Please, is that clear? Is everybody understanding that?
Yes, sir.
Uzi, is it clear? Hello, Paulinus, are you with us? Is it clear? Okay. All right, so when you get it and you click and this happens immediately, okay? The reason why I'm going through this, I just wanted us to be on the same page. I understand that some of us have already gone past this, but I just wanted everybody to align. And funny enough, the persons I want to align, because I didn't see your exercise, it's actually Uzi and Paulinus. I didn't see your exercise, so I will assume probably you've not done it. And if for you not to have done it, it means that some of these things might still be a little bit confusing to you. So, but I need you to respond because I can't get a response from the both of you. Otherwise, we'll move on to something else. All right. So, as I said before, we have different types of mouse events. We have the click event and the mouse down event. But for today, what I had wanted us to look at is
I'm sorry, sir. Please.
Okay, go ahead.
Are you recording?
Yes, I'm recording.
Okay, great. Thanks.
What I had wanted us to look at is okay, how to click and change. Okay, let me
Please
just
check the message. Uzi sent a message. Kindly see.
okay. Uzi, we can't hear you. I don't know. If you can speak, you speak. We are struggling. We can't hear you. Maybe you should change your mic or something.
She's asking if she can show her work. Maybe you should give her the go ahead to do so. Can see the message, right?
You can go ahead and share your screen. Let's see. Well, how do you explain your concept to us when we can't even hear you? Or turn your video on, something like that, so we'll know. Hello. All right, guys, let's just continue. Okay, so, all right, let me go through this again. So the click event, how does it work? As we explained the last time, when you call an event listener, after storing the particular HTML element that you want to trigger the event for, you call an event listener on it. This first syntax you pass here is the event itself that is being triggered. In this my case, is a click event. If we're dealing with keyboard events, it will be key press events. We have the key press events, the key press, and the click events. Okay. So the key, this here. So please note we are using click because click is a common event we do in our browser. Is a common event. I think another common one is the key press where we do when we use it with enter or something. Okay, was any other person hearing Uzi? Am I the only one not hearing her? Hello, Dave. Hello. Was any
I
other
couldn't
person
hear
hearing?
her.
Okay, I don't think Uzi, we can hear you. I think you should change your mic. You can remove your earpiece. Speak directly on to your system or something. We can't hear you. All right. So I said when you call the add event listener method, you pass two things. The first thing you pass is the event, while the second thing you pass is the second parameter you pass is the event handler itself. But I said, please note, when you're passing this event handler, you don't call it, remember that this event handler is a normal function. This event handler, as we discussed the last time, is a normal function. If you go to this my event handler, where did it stop? It ends, starts here, that's here, it ends. Hello, sir. Yes, sir. Okay, it will not hold today. It won't hold today. Okay. Is the man I wanted to ask? Yes, sir. Thank you, sir.
We
Sorry
can't
for
hear you.
that. All right, can you hear me now? That's my network. Can you hear me now?
Yes, sir.
All right. Okay, so we're running this function. Okay. So we're running this function on line 6. This line 646. This is the function. And what does the function do? We're simply saying that if you change the background color of this P3 element to blue whenever we click to blue. Now remember that the event handlers are normal functions. The event listeners are normal, or handlers are normal functions. Now have the event listener method that JavaScript gives to us. Then in that method, you pass the event that you want to trigger. You pass the event that you want to trigger. Then you now pass what you want to have, the function that you want to run when that event is triggered. Remember that when passing it, you don't call the function. No, when we say calling a function means writing the closing and open brackets in front of the function. Once you do this, you've called the function. But in the case of event listener, you don't call the function. You only just write the function name like this. Once you're working like this, you only just write the function name. You don't call the function. So that's what I want us to know, because if you call the function, see what happens. I think we saw an example the last time. We are saying that if I click on this P3 element, I want the color to change to blue. Now see what happened, because I'm calling the function, the color is already blue. It's automatically blue. Because what I'm saying is that when the browser starts, run this particular function, and when what is the function doing? Call this function, change it to blue. But if I remove this and refresh, okay, now it's red. The background color is red. Then when I now click on it, it now changes to blue. That is as simple as it gets. Now, there are different ways of calling event listeners on HTML elements. This is the best way of doing it. But we have situations where event listeners are passed into HTML elements. If I had an HTML element here, they are passed into HTML element as attributes. We have that can also be possible. Let me see if I can. Let's demonstrate with an example. Let's say this is H1. You can say we have a big header. Let's say another big header. Okay. So I have this another big header. Now, as I was saying, I said there are different ways of calling event listeners in HTML elements. But one of the best way of doing it is what we've done so far. You use the add event listener and call it, state your callback, not your event handlers. You call them inside, pass it accepts two parameters. One is the event and one is the event handler. We mentioned that. Then I also mentioned that we can also see this function I wrote here. I can embed it inside the element itself. It can be embedded inside this. I'm looking for that example. Okay, look like this example. We had this example. This is this is this whole place this is our event handler. But instead of writing it, declaring it outside and calling it inside the event listener method, we rather called everything inside, which is what I think there was a place we read something like that. Okay, for this line, I think we did. Yeah, see this line. We had this. Okay, so this code base from here to here, we can also cut it out, write it outside, and just call the name inside. That was what I was trying to explain. But in this case, we called it directly inside. Is that something that we all understand, or should I go ahead and do it? Okay. So this is another thing. Yes, now we have to give it a name. Say, what name should I give it? Toggle. Okay. Okay. So we come here and we change this to toggle. So we declared the function outside, and we're calling it inside here. We are writing the name inside here. Okay, so let's see what this gives us. BTN, what button is BTN? This. Okay, yeah, we're saying that we'll toggle these statements. If you click changes. I know we did this example last week. That was from here. But what I wanted to actually show us was the fact that you can write it directly here, and you can just declare it outside and call the name in the event listener method. Okay, any question before this time once up?
No questions.
Yeah. All right, just do where to join in the next session. Have less than a minute. Okay. All right, so let's continue. Okay. So I had wanted to show us how another way we could handle events. This is one method of handling events, which you saw here. Then there's another way of handling events. Now we can handle events inside our HTML by calling them as if we're calling HTML attributes. But please note, whenever we are handling them, whenever we're handling events inside the HTML elements themselves, that is passing the events handler function or the event handlers inside HTML, we use a keyword on. Let's say want to work with a click event, we add on to make it on click event. If it's a change event, we call it on change event. So whenever you see on, you know that we are actually handling the events within our HTML element. For example, this HTML element, another big header. Now, if I want to click on it and make something happen, I will use the onClick method. Then I now pass the function that I want to call. Let's say change color. Let's go change color. Okay. Meanwhile, I have not declared this function. I call it change color. Change color. Okay. Now, I'm trying to say that if I click on this event should be triggered. Now, see the difference. The difference in calling it inside HTML is that we call the event itself. We don't just declare the name. We call the event. When we are handling it in JavaScript, we don't. When we are handling it using the add event listener method in JavaScript, we don't call it. But in HTML, we call it. Now I have this change color. So I can go back to my JavaScript. Remember, I have a change color there. If I come here, I now declare the function that I want to run, the event handler. And the event handler, of course, you know that event handlers are normal functions. Change color, change color, change color. So I'm saying that, anyway, before I do that, I will need to, of course, save these elements. Let me give it an ID. Let me give it an ID. Call it so that I can focus and call it. You know why I'm giving it an ID so that I can target it and call it in my JavaScript. So the ID is call it first, or let's call it another header. Okay, let's say another header. Okay. So if I come here, I want to target it and use, call it first header. Go ahead and say documents dot. Okay, let me use query selector. Query selector. First header. All right. Okay, so I have a first header here, and that is what I want to change. So, and I say first header dot style dot color. Color should be what? Should be blue. But that should be triggered only when I click on it. So let's see what we have here. Okay, so it has changed to blue. It has changed to blue. Let me use pink. So let's click. It is pink. All right. So this is another way of handling events. This time around, we are declaring the events, the events as a HTML attribute, just as the way we declare ID, class, we declare it as a, but in this case now, we are calling the event listener. We are not just naming it or writing the name. So that's the difference between handling events inside HTML, passing it as attributes, and handling it in JavaScript using the get element by ID method. Please, any questions on this? But before I take questions, conventionally, it is advised not to do it this way. The best approach is what we learned before. Why I did this is because you still see some codes where they will do it this way. But the best approach is going by this method, going by using the JavaScript provided method, get add event listener and calling your events. So is it clear, please? And I'm sure this is pretty straightforward, but if you have a question, please feel free to ask. Let's trash it out together. Any questions?
It's clear, sir.
Okay. Okay, so having said that, I will say that I wanted to also introduce the concept of forms. Okay, please, did anybody have difficulty adding image using JavaScript? I would have loved Uzi to really be active on this call because I've not seen her work. So that will help each other. Because I know we didn't talk of adding images, but we've added the images and I'm impressed. So I wanted everybody to be on the same page so that we know we're riding along and we are carrying everybody along in this series.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. If you could just demonstrate it, because I had that issue and I would like to know if there is any simple, straightforward way to do it. But I can't share screen. My system is very down now.
But what you did is actually is actually how they do it, not that way.
Okay, okay, then just modify it and make
you created your image, then you did your image.source and equal to then because I do I have an image here. Yeah, I have an image. Okay, let me see. Okay, so we have we can do const image, now say documents dot create elements. Create elements is a very powerful guy. Create elements. Then we are creating an image element this time around. So say img. Okay. So we're creating these elements. But the challenge is, let me create it. Okay, yeah. So we're creating these elements, and we're now saying that the image that we just created, the source of the image, that's the image source. You know how you create your image source will be. Let me see if I have this guy dom dot array. Okay. So let me append it to document.body. Yeah. Yeah, or maybe just missing. What did we get wrong? Hmm. Can point at where we're not getting right. Hello, can you hear me? Hello.
We can hear you, sir.
Okay, can you point at what we're missing? Because we're missing something, that is why our image is not showing. Okay.
Please, where you have dom.png, is it the folder where the picture is or the picture name?
No, this is the picture I'm trying to. This is the picture here. It's on the same
Okay.
level with the image.
Okay. You put a slash at the front.
At the front.
Uh,
This front.
no, like you put a dot and a slash.
Yeah, it's there already. The okay, that's created the image. See my problem. Sort of SROC. Yep, that was my problem. So this is how to add image. Nothing complex. I think you did this and you did it very well. So I can go ahead and give it a class, then style it and stuff. So we also looked at how to create input elements, creating input elements and creating buttons. I think we did that last week. Let me see if I can get. Yes, part of what we'll be looking at majorly. Create input elements. I have an input element here called name inputs. Okay, so this is how we created the element. Document.create element inputs. We've done how to create inputs. Let's say I want to create a text area. Text area. Okay. And if I go ahead and append it here. Okay. Okay. But basically, that is just how to create different HTML elements using your JavaScript. So how to create a button, create input elements. You can also create text area. I'm trying to text area. I'm not getting the correct name for it. You can also create text area and the likes. Now, another important aspect that we're looking at is how to handle forms using JavaScript. because most of the thing you'll be doing as a front end is to handle responses, handle forms, and the rest of it. So we're going to be looking at how to handle forms. So please, I want to end class now because of my system. I don't want to start, I'm not able to finish it. But we'll be looking at forms. And when we look at forms, we'll see how to handle different forms and how to retrieve image information from different forms. I know we started something like that last week when we did the change events, when we implemented change events on the name input field. I know we started something like that last week. I think last week, but we didn't. Yeah, this is it. Started something like this last week. So we can have this also an event type. Have the click events, you have the change events. But this is mostly applicable for input elements. It helps us, it's like an event that is being triggered whenever the user is trying to input the data into an input field. So that is what it does for us. We can say, okay, after inputting the data, it has a special event object that we saw here, that the value of what has been imputed can actually be retrieved using e.target.value. That the value of what has been imputed can actually be retrieved using e.target.value. This is very especially when dealing with forms. Very important when dealing with forms. So I can go ahead and input my name here, input something else here, then I'll retrieve them at the end of the day. Or when I submit the button, it kind of wraps them up inside an object that will be transferred to a back end or a database system where it will be stored or anything can be done with it. So basically, that is what we'll be looking at. We'll be going into details and looking at forms, how to handle forms using JavaScript from our next class. So please come prepared, practice how to build most of these HTML elements. I really appreciate the work you've done. You guys really were amazing. The little assignment you did. I would still please like to get feedback from Uzi. If you can, within the week, you can send me your results. But most times when we write codes, it's good to explain the ideas behind our codes. That's why I wanted you to speak up. I wanted us to hear your thoughts, the thoughts behind your code. So let's go ahead and do those revisions and get prepared. When we come next week, we'll look at forms, how to handle forms. Because this class was basically to end this session, basically know if you have questions and try to conclude on this part before we now move on to forms and start moving on to other things. And after we do forms, I think we can, if we finish forms, okay, we might touch other little things, then we'll go into React. Because every other thing we'll be doing, we'll also be doing them along as we learn React. But please master these things. These are the core basics. Once you've learned how to build everything from scratch using this, then we can now do others. Okay, before we go into React, we might need to build, we'll do something. We'll have to build maybe portfolio from scratch, build our portfolio from scratch using just pure JavaScript. That's why I wanted to do that form, so that once we're done with forms, we are good to go. All right, if you don't have any questions, if you have questions, please you can go ahead and ask. So,
thank you so much, sir.
You're welcome.
Just to combine the request to combine the video of last week and this one, maybe send us